The rain was pouring down hard that evening when Raj pulled his old scooter to the side of the road. He looked up at the tall iron gates of the Harmony Music Academy and took a deep breath. His delivery bag was getting wet, and he knew the customer would complain if the food arrived soggy. But for just a moment, he didn't care. He stood there, letting the rain hit his face, staring at the beautiful building in front of him. This place was like a palace to him. The walls were painted white. The windows were huge. And even from outside, he could hear the faint sound of piano music floating through the air. It was the kind of place where dreams were made. But not his dreams. His dreams had died a long time ago. Raj was 22 years old. He had dark circles under his eyes from waking up at 5 every morning. His hands were rough from gripping the handles of his scooter for 10 hours a day. He earned just enough money to keep his family alive, and most days, that felt like a victory. His father had passed away 6 years ago. A sudden heart attack. No warning. No goodbye. One day he was there, laughing and telling stories, and the next day he was gone. Raj was only 16 when it happened. His mother had cried for weeks. His little sister, Meera, who was just 10 at the time, kept asking when Papa was coming home. Raj never got to cry. He didn't have time. Someone had to earn money. Someone had to pay the rent. Someone had to put food on the table, so he dropped out of school, found a job, and became the man of the house overnight. 6 years later, nothing had changed. He was still delivering food, still struggling, still invisible to the world. He shook off the rain and rode his scooter through the academy gates. The security guard barely looked at him. Delivery boys came and went all day. They were like ghosts in this place. Nobody noticed them. Nobody cared. Raj parked near the back entrance and grabbed the food bag. As he walked through the hallway, he couldn't help but look around. The floors were so clean he could see his reflection in them. The walls were covered with photographs of students holding trophies and certificates. Everyone in those pictures looked happy, successful, like they belonged to a different world. And then he heard it, the sound of a piano. Raj stopped walking. The melody was coming from somewhere down the hall. It was soft at first, like a whisper. Then it grew louder, more powerful, filling the entire corridor with its beauty. He had never heard anything like it. The music wrapped around him like a warm blanket on a cold night. For a few seconds, he forgot where he was. He forgot who he was. He followed the sound until he reached a large wooden door. It was slightly open. Through the gap, he could see a grand piano in the center of a beautiful room. And sitting at that piano was a woman. She had long black hair that fell past her shoulders. Her fingers moved across the keys like they were dancing. Her eyes were closed, and there was a peaceful expression on her face, like she was lost in another world. Raj had never seen anyone look so graceful. Her name was Ananya. She was one of the piano teachers at the academy. Raj had seen her a few times before, during his deliveries. But always from a distance. She was the kind of woman who made you nervous just by being in the same room, not because she was mean or arrogant, but because she was so far out of reach. She was educated, talented, beautiful. And Raj was just a delivery boy, with dirt on his shoes. He stood there watching her play, completely frozen. He didn't even realize he was holding his breath, and then someone tapped him on the shoulder. Raj spun around and found himself face to face with a group of students. There were 4 of them, all wearing expensive clothes and carrying instrument cases. The one in front was a tall guy with gelled hair and a watch that probably cost more than Raj earned in a year. His name was Vikram. Raj had seen him around before. He was one of those guys who walked like he owned the place. Because in a way, he did. His father was some big businessman who donated a lot of money to the academy. Vikram looked at Raj with a smirk on his face. "What are you doing here?" Raj held up the food bag. "Delivery." "Then why are you standing here like a statue?" Vikram asked. His friends laughed behind him. Raj didn't answer. He just lowered his eyes and started to walk away. But Vikram wasn't done. Wait a minute, Vikram said, stepping in front of him. Were you watching her? Were you watching Miss Ananya? Raj felt his face turn red. No. I was just... The music. Vikram burst out laughing. The music? You? He turned to his friends. Did you hear that? The delivery boy was enjoying the music. The others laughed even harder. One of them, a girl with gold earrings, shook her head like Raj had said something ridiculous. Does he even know what a piano is? Probably thinks it's a fancy table, another one said. Raj's hands tightened around the food bag. He wanted to say something. He wanted to tell them that he knew more about music than they could ever imagine. That his father used to tune pianos for rich families all over the city. That Raj had spent his childhood sitting beside those pianos, learning every note, every sound, every feeling that music could create. But he said nothing. Because what was the point? They wouldn't believe him. They would just laugh even more. In their eyes, he was nothing. Just a poor boy who delivered their food. A servant. A nobody. The door to the music room opened, and Miss Ananya stepped out. The laughter stopped immediately. Everyone straightened up like soldiers. What's going on here? She asked, her voice calm but firm. Vikram smiled his charming smile. Nothing, ma'am. Just having a little chat with the delivery boy. Ananya looked at Raj. For a moment, their eyes met. Raj quickly looked away. He couldn't handle it. He felt too small. Too ashamed. Is that my order? Ananya asked gently. Raj nodded and handed her the bag. She took it and smiled at him. Thank you. What's your name? Raj blinked. No one had ever asked him that before. Not in this place. Raj, he said quietly. Thank you, Raj, she said. Those 3 words hit him harder than anything else that had happened that day. Not because they were special, but because they were kind. Because she had looked at him like he was a human being. Like he mattered. He walked out of the academy that night with his head down and his heart heavy. The rain had stopped, but the cold had gotten worse. He sat on his scooter for a long time, staring at the building. Somewhere inside, the piano started playing again. Raj closed his eyes and listened. And for just a moment, he let himself remember. He remembered his father. He remembered the old pianos they used to visit together. He remembered the feeling of keys beneath his fingers. He remembered who he used to be. And for the first time in years, something stirred inside him. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. A week passed after that rainy evening. But Raj couldn't stop thinking about it. Every night before falling asleep, he would replay that moment in his head. The sound of the piano, the laughter of those students, the way Miss Ananya had looked at him and said his name. He tried to forget. He told himself it didn't matter. He was a delivery boy. That was his life. There was no point in dreaming about things he could never have. But the heart doesn't listen to logic, and Raj's heart had been awakened. He continued his deliveries to the academy every day. But now, he found himself slowing down whenever he passed the music rooms. He would park his scooter a little farther away just so he could walk through the long hallway and hear the students practicing. Sometimes it was violin, sometimes it was flute. But the sound he loved most was the piano. It reminded him of his father. His father had worked as a piano tuner. It wasn't a glamorous job. Rich families would call him to their big houses to fix their expensive pianos. They never offered him tea or asked him to sit down. To them, he was just a worker. But to Raj, he was a magician. Raj remembered sitting beside his father as a child, watching him open up those grand pianos and adjust the strings inside. His father would tap a key, listen carefully, turn a tiny screw, and tap again. It was like watching a doctor heal a patient. And sometimes, when the family wasn't looking, his father would play. Not for long. Just a few notes. A small melody. But those few seconds were enough to show Raj what music really was. It wasn't just sound. It was feeling. It was memory. It was love. His father had taught him how to play in secret. They couldn't afford a piano of their own, so Raj would practice on a paper keyboard his father had drawn for him. He would press the silent keys and imagine the music in his head. And whenever they visited a client's house, his father would let him play for a few minutes while no one was watching. By the time Raj was 15, he could play better than most students at any music school. But no one knew. It was their little secret. A poor man's dream, hidden from the world. Then his father died, and the music died with him. Raj hadn't touched a piano in 6 years. He had locked that part of himself away and thrown out the key. There was no room for dreams when you were trying to survive. But now, walking through the halls of the Harmony Music Academy, those old feelings were coming back, and he didn't know how to stop them. One afternoon, Raj arrived at the academy with a lunch order. As he walked past the main recital hall, he noticed a large poster on the wall. It was bright and colorful, with golden letters that read, "Annual Piano Competition, Open to All." Raj stopped and read the details. The competition was in 2 weeks. The winner would receive a full scholarship to study at the academy and a chance to perform at the National Concert Hall. There was a picture of a grand piano at the bottom of the poster, shining under bright lights. For a moment, Raj let himself imagine. What if he could enter? What if he could show everyone what he could do? But then reality hit him. He wasn't a student. He didn't belong here. He was just the guy who brought the food. He shook his head and kept walking. When he reached the recital hall to deliver the order, the door was open. Inside, a group of students were gathered around the piano. Vikram was sitting at the bench, his fingers flying across the keys. He was playing a complicated piece, fast and loud, showing off for his friends. Raj recognized the piece. It was Chopin's Ballade. No one. A beautiful but very difficult composition. His father had played it once, years ago, in the living room of a wealthy family. Raj had never forgotten it. Vikram finished with a dramatic flourish and stood up to applause from his friends. He bowed like he had just performed at a concert hall. "That's how it's done," Vikram said proudly. "No one in this academy can play that piece better than me." His friends nodded and cheered. One of them noticed Raj standing at the door. "Look who's here again," she said. "The delivery boy." Vikram turned around and smiled that same arrogant smile. "Ah, our biggest fan. Did you enjoy the show?" Raj didn't answer. He just held up the food bag. But Vikram wasn't going to let him go that easily. He walked over to Raj and looked him up and down. "You know, I've seen you hanging around the music rooms a lot lately. What's the matter? Dreaming of being a musician?" The other students laughed. Raj kept his face calm. "I'm just doing my job." "Sure you are," Vikram said. "But let me give you some advice. Music isn't for people like you. It takes years of training, expensive teachers, natural talent. You can't just wake up one day and decide to play the piano." Raj said nothing, but something inside him was burning. At that moment, Miss Ananya walked into the room. She was carrying some sheet music and looked surprised to see the crowd. "What's going on here?" she asked. Vikram immediately changed his tone. "Just having some fun, ma'am. I was showing everyone the Chopin piece I've been practicing for the competition." Ananya nodded. It sounded good. But remember, the competition isn't just about speed. It's about emotion, about telling a story through music. Vikram smiled confidently. "Of course, ma'am." Ananya's eyes moved to Raj. She seemed to recognize him. "You're the delivery boy from last week." "Right, Raj?" Raj was surprised she remembered. "Yes, ma'am." "Do you like music?" she asked gently. Before Raj could answer, Vikram interrupted. "Him? He probably thinks a piano is something you eat." The room filled with laughter again. Ananya didn't laugh. She looked at Raj with curious eyes, waiting for his answer. Raj felt his heart pounding. He wanted to tell her the truth. He wanted to say that music was the only thing he had ever truly loved. That he had spent his childhood dreaming of playing on a stage. That he still heard melodies in his head every single night. But the words wouldn't come out. Vikram walked back to the piano and sat down. "Tell you what, delivery boy. If you think music is so easy, why don't you play something? Play this Chopin piece that I just played. Go ahead. More laughter. Ananya shook her head. Vikram, that's enough. But Vikram was enjoying himself. No, really. I want to see him try. Come on, delivery boy. Show us what you've got. The room went quiet. Everyone was staring at Raj. He could feel their eyes on him, waiting for him to fail, waiting for him to embarrass himself. Ananya sighed and said something she didn't really mean. It was just a joke to break the tension. All right. All right. Raj, if you can play that piece, I'll marry you myself. The room exploded with laughter. Even Ananya smiled, thinking it was just a harmless joke to end the awkward moment. But Raj didn't laugh. He looked at the piano. He looked at Vikram's smug face. He looked at Miss Ananya. And then he looked at himself. At his old clothes, his rough hands, his tired eyes. He thought about his father. About all those secret lessons. About the paper keyboard he used to practice on every night. About the dreams he had buried 6 years ago. Something shifted inside him. He opened his mouth and spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. Give me 1 week. The laughter stopped. Everyone stared at him. Vikram blinked. What did you say? Raj looked him straight in the eyes. I said give me 1 week. I'll play that piece. And I'll play it better than you. The room was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Miss Ananya's smile faded. She looked at Raj like she was seeing him for the first time. Vikram recovered quickly and laughed. Fine. 1 week. But when you fail, and you will fail, I want you to get on your knees and apologize to everyone in this room. Raj nodded slowly. And if I win? Vikram spread his arms. If you win, I'll do the same. I'll bow down to the delivery boy. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Raj turned and walked out of the room without another word. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. He had no idea what he had just done. But somewhere deep inside, a fire had been lit, and there was no putting it out now. Raj rode his scooter home that night in complete silence. His mind was spinning. His hands were still trembling on the handles. He couldn't believe what he had just done. 1 week. He had given himself 1 week to learn one of the most difficult piano pieces ever written. A piece that professional musicians spent months perfecting. And he hadn't touched a piano in 6 years. What was he thinking? He parked his scooter outside his small house and sat there for a long time. The street was quiet. A stray dog walked past him without looking up. Somewhere in the distance, a baby was crying. This was his world. Small, simple, forgotten. He thought about Vikram's face. That smug, confident smile. He thought about the other students laughing at him. He thought about Miss Ananya and the way she had looked at him when he accepted the challenge. She probably thought he was crazy. Maybe he was, but there was something else he couldn't stop thinking about. When he had spoken those words, when he had said, "Give me 1 week," he had felt something he hadn't felt in years. He had felt alive. Raj finally went inside. The house was small. Just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen. The paint on the walls was peeling. The furniture was old and worn. But it was clean. His mother made sure of that. She said that being poor didn't mean being dirty. His mother was sitting on the floor, rolling out dough for rotis. His younger sister, Mira, was beside her, doing homework by the light of a small lamp. They both looked up when he came in. "You're late," his mother said. Not angry. Just tired. "Sorry, Ma. Long day." His mother looked at him carefully. She had that look in her eyes. The one that could see right through him. Something happened. Raj shook his head. Nothing happened. "Don't lie to me, Beta. I've known you for 22 years. I can tell when something is bothering you." Raj sat down on the floor beside her. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Ma, do you remember how Papa used to teach me piano?" His mother's hand stopped moving. She looked at him with surprise. They never talked about his father. It was too painful. The wound had never really healed. "Of course I remember," she said softly. You used to practice on that paper keyboard he made for you. You would sit there for hours, pressing those silent keys. Raj nodded. I was good, wasn't I? His mother smiled sadly. You were better than good. Your father used to say you had magic in your fingers. He said one day you would play on a big stage and make everyone cry with your music. Raj felt a lump in his throat. I made a promise today, Ma. A stupid promise. I told some rich students that I would play a very difficult piece in 1 week. I told them I would be better than them. His mother was silent for a long moment. Then she asked, why? Raj didn't know how to answer. Why had he done it? To prove himself? To defend his pride? To show them that he was more than just a delivery boy? Or was it something deeper? Something he had been running from for 6 years? I don't know, he finally said. But I can't back out now. If I fail, they will humiliate me. They will make me bow down in front of everyone. His mother put down the rolling pin and took his hands in hers. Her hands were rough from years of hard work, but her touch was gentle. Then don't fail, she said. Raj looked at her. Ma, I haven't played in 6 years. I don't even have a piano. His mother smiled. Your father didn't have a piano either. But he found a way. He always found a way. And so will you. That night, Raj couldn't sleep. He lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what his mother had said. His father had always found a way. No matter how hard things got, he never gave up. He worked long hours, traveled to distant houses, dealt with rude customers, and still came home with a smile. He taught Raj that talent meant nothing without hard work, that dreams were worth chasing, even if the world told you they were impossible. Raj got up before sunrise the next morning. He had an idea. On the outskirts of the city, there was an old church that had been abandoned years ago. Raj had passed by it many times during his deliveries. The building was falling apart. The windows were broken. The walls were covered with dust and cobwebs, but inside that church, there was a piano. Raj had seen it once, a long time ago, when he had peeked through the broken door out of curiosity. It was an old, upright piano, dusty and forgotten. He didn't know if it still worked, but it was his only hope. He rode his scooter to the church early that morning. The streets were empty. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Raj parked outside the church and walked in. The inside was exactly as he remembered. Broken benches, faded paintings on the walls, dust everywhere. And in the corner, covered with a dirty cloth, was the piano. Raj walked over and pulled off the cloth. The piano was old and scratched. Some of the keys were yellow with age, but when he pressed one, it made a sound. It was out of tune. The tone was off. But it worked. Raj sat down on the broken bench and placed his fingers on the keys. His heart was pounding. He hadn't done this in 6 years. He didn't even know if he still could. He closed his eyes and thought of his father. He thought of those secret lessons, those stolen moments at rich people's houses, those nights practicing on a paper keyboard while dreaming of something more, and then he started to play. The first notes were clumsy. His fingers felt stiff and slow. He made mistakes. He hit wrong keys. The music sounded broken and ugly, but he kept going. For the next 6 days, Raj followed the same routine. He would wake up at 4 in the morning, ride to the church, and practice until 7. Then he would go to work and deliver food all day. In the evening, he would come back to the church and practice until midnight. He slept only 3 or 4 hours a night. His fingers started to bleed from pressing the keys so hard. His back ached from sitting on the broken bench. His eyes burned from exhaustion. But he didn't stop. Every night, when he felt like giving up, he would think of his father. He would hear his voice saying, "One more time. Beta. Just one more time." And he would play again. By the 3rd day, the music started to come back. His fingers remembered what his mind had forgotten. The notes began to flow more smoothly. The melody began to take shape. By the 5th day, He could play the entire piece from memory. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was close. On the sixth night, his mother was waiting for him when he came home. She looked at his red, swollen fingers, and her eyes filled with tears. "What are you doing to yourself?" she whispered. Raj smiled tiredly. "I'm remembering, Ma. I'm remembering who I used to be." She hugged him tightly. "Your father would be so proud of you." Raj closed his eyes and let himself rest in her arms. Tomorrow was the day. Tomorrow, everything would change. He didn't know if he was ready. He didn't know if he could really beat someone who had trained for years at an elite academy. He didn't know if anyone would take him seriously, but he knew one thing for sure. He was not going to give up. Not this time. Not ever again. The morning sun felt different that day, brighter somehow, sharper, like even the sky knew something important was about to happen. Raj stood in front of the small, cracked mirror in his room, looking at himself. He was wearing his best shirt, a plain white one that his mother had washed and ironed the night before. It was old, and the collar was slightly frayed, but it was clean. His pants were simple black trousers, the only pair he owned that didn't have patches. He looked at his hands. The cuts on his fingers had started to heal, but they were still red and sore. He had pushed his body to its limit over the past week. Every muscle ached. Every joint was stiff. But none of that mattered now. Today was the day. His mother came into the room and stood behind him. She placed her hands on his shoulders and looked at his reflection in the mirror. "You look handsome," she said softly. Raj tried to smile but couldn't. His stomach was twisted in knots. "I'm scared, Ma." His mother nodded. "Good. That means you care. But remember what your father used to say. Fear is not your enemy. Giving up is." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a silver button, old and slightly tarnished. Raj recognized it immediately. It had belonged to his father's favorite shirt. The shirt he wore whenever he went to tune pianos at the big houses. "I've kept this since the day he died," his mother said. "I was going to give it to you on your wedding day. But I think you need it more today." Raj took the button and held it tightly in his palm. He could feel tears building in his eyes, but he blinked them away. "Thank you, Ma." She kissed his forehead. "Now go. Go and make your father proud." Raj rode his scooter to the academy for what felt like the 100th time. But today, everything felt different. The streets seemed longer. The traffic seemed louder. His heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst out of his chest. When he arrived at the gates, he paused. The security guard looked at him with confusion. "Deliveries go to the back entrance," the guard said. Raj shook his head. "I'm not here to deliver food today." The guard raised an eyebrow but didn't stop him. Raj walked through the main entrance for the first time in his life. The hallway stretched out before him, long and grand, filled with students in expensive clothes, carrying instrument cases. People stared at him as he walked past. He heard whispers. He saw smirks. But he kept his head up and kept walking. When he reached the recital hall, a small crowd had already gathered. Word had spread about the challenge. Everyone wanted to see the delivery boy embarrass himself. It was entertainment for them. A joke. Vikram was standing near the piano, surrounded by his friends. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, and his hair was styled like he was about to walk a red carpet. When he saw Raj enter, his face lit up with amusement. Well, Vikram said loudly. "The delivery boy actually showed up. I thought you would run away." Some people laughed. Others whispered to each other. Raj said nothing. He just walked toward the piano. Vikram stepped in front of him. "Hold on. You can't just walk in here and touch the piano. This instrument costs more than your entire house. Do you even know how to sit properly?" More laughter. Raj looked at Vikram calmly. "I made a promise. I'm here to keep it." Vikram shrugged and stepped aside. "Fine, go ahead. But don't blame me when you make a fool of yourself." Raj walked to the piano and stood in front of it. It was a beautiful grand piano, black and shiny, with keys that looked like they had never been touched by dirty hands. Nothing like the broken old piano in the abandoned church. He ran his fingers lightly over the surface. The wood was smooth and cold. Just then, the door opened, and Miss Ananya walked in. She looked surprised to see the crowd. Then her eyes found Raj standing at the piano, and her expression changed to something he couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe. Or curiosity. "What's happening here?" she asked. Vikram smiled charmingly. "The delivery boy is about to play for us, ma'am. Remember the challenge from last week? He said he could play Chopin better than me." "Too." Ananya looked at Raj. "Are you sure about this?" Raj met her eyes. For a moment, the rest of the room disappeared. It was just the two of them. "I'm sure," he said quietly. She studied his face for a long moment. Then, she nodded slowly and stepped back. Raj sat down on the bench. It was soft and comfortable. Nothing like the broken wooden bench at the church. He placed his fingers on the keys. They felt cool and smooth beneath his touch. The room went silent. Everyone was watching, waiting. Raj closed his eyes. He thought of his father. He thought of those stolen moments at rich people's houses. He thought of the paper keyboard. He thought of his mother's words that morning. He thought of the silver button in his pocket. And then he began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure. It hung in the air like a single drop of rain. Then came the second note. And the third. Slowly, gently, the melody began to unfold. Chopin's Ballade, No. 1. One of the most beautiful and difficult pieces ever written. A piece that told a story of love and loss, of hope and heartbreak. Raj didn't just play the notes, he felt them. Every sound that came from his fingers carried a piece of his soul. The pain of losing his father, the years of struggle and sacrifice, the loneliness of being invisible, the dream that had never died, no matter how hard he tried to bury it. The music filled the room like a wave. It wrapped around everyone and held them tight. It was impossible to look away, impossible to breathe. Vikram's smile slowly faded. His friends stopped whispering. The students who had come to laugh stood frozen with their mouths open. Miss Ananya's eyes grew wide. Her hand moved to her heart. Tears began to form in the corners of her eyes. Raj played on. The music grew stronger, more powerful. His fingers danced across the keys like they had a life of their own. Every note was perfect. Every pause was meaningful. It wasn't just a performance, it was a confession, a prayer, a cry from the deepest part of his heart. The piece reached its climax, loud and passionate. Then it slowly softened, becoming gentle again, tender, like a goodbye. The final notes hung in the air for a long moment. Then, silence. Complete silence. Raj opened his eyes. His face was wet. He hadn't even realized he was crying. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Miss Ananya started clapping. One person joined her. Then another. Then another. Suddenly, the entire room erupted in applause. People were cheering. Some were wiping tears from their eyes. Others just stood there, shaking their heads in disbelief. Raj stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. He looked around at the faces staring at him. These were the same people who had laughed at him, the same people who had called him a nobody. Now they were looking at him like he was someone else entirely. His eyes found Miss Ananya. She was still clapping, tears streaming down her cheeks. She smiled at him, and in that smile, he saw something that made his heart soar. Respect. He turned to look at Vikram. The arrogant boy was standing completely still. His face was pale. His hands were clenched at his sides. He looked like someone who had just watched his entire world collapse. The room slowly quieted down. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Raj didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He had let his music speak for him, and it had said everything. The applause slowly faded, but the energy in the room remained. People were still staring at Raj like they couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Some whispered to each other. Others simply stood in silence, trying to process what had happened. Raj remained standing by the piano, his heart still racing. He didn't know what to do next. He had spent so much energy preparing for this moment that he hadn't thought about what would come after. Then someone stepped forward from the crowd. It was an older man with gray hair and glasses, wearing a formal black suit. Raj recognized him. He was Mr. Kapoor, the director of the academy. He had seen him a few times during deliveries, always from a distance. The man carried himself with authority. When he moved, people made way for him. Mr. Kapoor walked straight to Raj and stopped in front of him. For a moment, he just looked at him, studying his face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "What is your name?" he asked. "Raj," he replied quietly. "Raj," Mr. Kapoor repeated. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Raj hesitated. He thought about lying. He thought about making up some story about secret lessons or hidden teachers. But he was tired of hiding. Tired of pretending to be less than he was. "My father taught me," he said. "He was a piano tuner. He used to take me to big houses when he worked. Sometimes, when no one was looking, he would let me play. He made me a paper keyboard to practice on at home. I would press the keys every night and imagine the music in my head." The room was completely silent. Everyone was listening. Mr. Kapoor's expression softened. "A paper keyboard," he said slowly. "And you learned to play like this from a paper keyboard?" Raj nodded. "I haven't touched a real piano in 6 years. Not until last week. I found an old, broken one in an abandoned church. I practiced there every day." Mr. Kapoor shook his head in disbelief. He turned to look at the other students, then back at Raj. "I have been running this academy for 30 years. I have seen hundreds of talented students come and go. But I have never seen anything like this." He reached out and placed his hand on Raj's shoulder. "Young man, you have a gift. A rare and precious gift. And I would be honored if you would accept a full scholarship to study here at the academy." Raj felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. A scholarship. A chance to study music. A chance to follow the dream he had buried 6 years ago. He couldn't speak. He just stood there, frozen. From somewhere in the crowd, he heard a familiar voice. He cheated. Everyone turned. It was Vikram. His face was red, and his fists were clenched. He pushed through the crowd and pointed at Raj. He must have cheated somehow. There's no way a delivery boy can play like that. He probably recorded something or used some trick. This is a fraud. Mr. Kapoor raised an eyebrow. "A fraud? I just watched him play with my own eyes. There was no recording. No trick. Just a young man and a piano." Vikram's voice grew louder. "But it's impossible. He's nobody. He's just a what?" Miss Ananya stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Just a delivery boy? Just a poor person? Does that mean he can't have talent? Does that mean he doesn't deserve a chance?" Vikram opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Ananya continued. "I've taught you for 2 years, Vikram. You have skill. You have training. But what Raj just played came from somewhere deeper. It came from his heart. That's something you can't buy with money or learn from expensive teachers." Vikram's face turned even redder. He looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. Even his friends were looking away. Mr. Kapoor cleared his throat. "I believe there was a challenge made. Something about bowing down if you lost." The room went quiet again. Everyone remembered the bet. Vikram stood frozen. His pride was crumbling in front of everyone. For the first time, he looked small. Defeated. Raj watched him for a moment. He thought about all the times Vikram had humiliated him. All the jokes. All the insults. All the laughter at his expense. A part of him wanted to see Vikram on his knees. A part of him wanted revenge. But then he thought about his father. About the lessons he had taught him. Not just about music, but about life. About being kind even when others were cruel. About winning with grace. Raj took a deep breath and spoke. "Forget the bet." Everyone looked at him in surprise. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone," Raj said. "I came here to prove something to myself. I came here to remember who I am. He looked at Vikram. You don't have to bow. Just remember that talent doesn't care about money or status. It can live anywhere, even in a delivery boy. Vikram stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in his eyes. It wasn't quite respect, but it was close. He gave a small nod, then turned and walked out of the room without another word. The crowd slowly began to break up. People came to congratulate Raj, shaking his hand, patting his back. Students who had never looked at him before were now smiling at him. It was strange and overwhelming, but there was one person Raj was looking for. He found her standing near the window. Miss Ananya. She was watching him with a soft smile on her face. Raj walked over to her. His heart was beating fast again, but for a different reason this time. Thank you, he said. For giving me a chance. For not laughing at me like the others. Ananya shook her head. I didn't give you anything. You earned this yourself. Raj smiled. You made a joke that day. About marrying me if I could play. Ananya laughed softly. Her cheeks turned slightly pink. I remember. I'm not going to hold you to that, Raj said. But maybe. Maybe you would like to have tea with me sometime? There's a small shop near my house. It's not fancy, but the chai is good. Ananya looked at him. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes. I would like that, she said. That evening, Raj rode his scooter home for the last time as just a delivery boy. Tomorrow, he would be a student at the Harmony Music Academy. Tomorrow, a new chapter would begin. When he walked through the door, his mother and sister were waiting. They had heard the news from a neighbor who had seen Raj at the academy. His mother was crying. His sister was jumping up and down with excitement. Raj hugged them both tightly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver button his mother had given him that morning. Papa was with me today, he said. I could feel him. His mother wiped her tears and smiled. He's always with you, Beta. He never left. That night, Raj sat on the roof of his small house, looking up at the stars. The city was quiet. The air was cool. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. He thought about everything that had happened. About the challenge. About the old piano in the church. About the moment he sat down in front of that grand piano and played his heart out. He thought about his father and how proud he would have been. And he thought about the future. About all the music he would create. About all the stages he would stand on. About the life that was waiting for him. It wouldn't be easy. There would be struggles ahead. There would be people who doubted him. But he had already faced the hardest part. He had faced himself. Raj smiled and closed his eyes. For the first time in 6 years, he felt at peace. His journey was just beginning.